Hello everyone and welcome back to This Is Real Life. I'm your host Sheri, and in today's DIY Wednesday video, we are going to make a completely custom table runner. And it's gonna be super easy. It's probably gonna be the easiest thing we've ever done in our entire lives. We're gonna do a sewed version on a sewing machine, and then I'll also walk you through how to do a completely no-sew version using the ever-popular iron-on hem tape. It doesn't get much easier. So, sewing machine, no sewing machine, we don't care. We can make this table runner, and we can make it so fast. All you need is a sewing machine and or an iron, and you're good to go. You will make yourself a custom table runner that nobody on the planet will have in this DIY Wednesday. Okay, so step one, what do we need to do? Pick our fabric. So, Jen, as you know, I'm in Jen's area. On the floor though, I may be in a different location, but shit doesn't change. I like to sew on the floor, so I made myself a spot on Jen's family room floor. She picked out this fabric for her table runner because it coordinates, or actually goes, with her dining room chairs that we recovered in the last DIY Wednesday video. So if you didn't see that, you gotta see that transformation because it was fucking bomb. Before you go to the fabric store, measure the length of your table and then add a foot to either side. So if your table measures 6 feet long, you will buy 8 feet of fabric. Now, what's cool is if you have a situation like Jen, where her dining room table has a leaf in it. When the leaf is out, the table is smaller. When the leaf is in, the table is longer. So when you go to buy your fabric, you're gonna notice it's really, really wide. What sucks is you have to buy a full length no matter how wide it is, because we don't want any seams in the middle of our table runner. We want one continuous length of fabric. But because the fabric is so wide, you can literally get 2 table runners out of one width of fabric. That's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna make Jen a table runner that fits her table without the leaf when it's smaller, and then make her another longer table runner so that when she does have the leaf in, she can still use a table runner and it will all coordinate with her fabric, because I got plenty of fabric here. Because this fabric is folded in half right now, I'm literally just gonna cut it in half on the natural fold of the fabric. So that'll give me 2 long runs. So yeah, first step, cut your fabric in half. Now, if you don't want to make 2 table runners, you are going to have a whole run of this wide fabric that maybe you can cover chairs with. You could most likely get out of one run of like 3 yards of fabric, chair covers and a table runner. Just saying. Let's cut our fabric, but while we're doing that, you want to have an iron heating up because we need to get everything crisp and flat and lovely. So let's open her up. It's long, it's wide. That's what she said. Where is my fold? Okay, done. Now that we have our fabric cut in half, we're literally going to move one to the side. Now, again, if you were just making one table runner, you have all of this fabric left over. Do a whole dining room refresh with just one run of fabric. So we're gonna put that one over there for now, and we're gonna work on this long run. We're gonna fold this in half. And this is going to be the width of our table runner. If you wanted your table runner a little wider, depending on the width of your table, you wouldn't cut your fabric directly in half. You would adjust your cut so that when you folded your fabric in half, it was the exact width that you wanted it. I'm not trying to make a tablecloth, so this width to me is fine. My table runner is gonna be about 14 inches wide. Perfect, in my opinion. And then we are going to iron it in a perfect crease right here. We are not going to sew the fold side. We're saving ourselves some time. All we're gonna do is sew one long line down the open end side. You could skip the ironing part, but I just find like when I don't iron my fabric, it makes it a little more difficult to like get a really crisp end result. So this is Jen's iron. Never used it. It's fancy, no cord. It's pretty cool. And yeah, am I ironing on the floor? Yes, I am. We want to get a really crisp crease, but don't burn your fabric. And then we can start sewing. So now that we have our fabric folded in half and ironed super crispy, we are going to actually unfold it and fold it back the opposite way. You know, the side that you want to see is going to be facing in, because we're basically just going to sew one long tube. I can still see my super great crease because I ironed it hard and good. And now I'm gonna fold it backwards on itself the other way. I'm gonna pin it every so often just so it stays in place. And then we're going to literally sew one long line. Now that we have our fabric folded the opposite direction, the outside of the fabric facing in, we literally are just gonna run it through the sewing machine with a straight line stitch right along the edge, leaving about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You just pile it on yourself, get your sewing machine set up for a straight line stitch, and call it a day. Like, that's it. We're gonna put our fabric in. I'm gonna do a little forward back action, lock in that seam, and then we sew. If you've gotten a sewing machine, you asked for one for Christmas like I did, and then you've never busted it out, now's the perfect time to bust it out. It doesn't get much easier. We're just gonna sew one straight line. And when we get to the end, forward, back, lock it in. Done. Voila. Now that that is done, I'm gonna take the pins out. I mean, up until this point, it's like, oh, woo-wee, you sewed a tube. That was awesome. In fact, we did sew a tube, not gonna lie. But now we get to add flair and make this table runner custom and our very own. We're going to create what we want the end of our table runner to look like. By that, I mean, this is the end that is gonna hang down. So flat, 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 edge of table, hang down. So the hang down, it's what do you want the end of your hang down to look like? You could have it be straight, a half moon shape, like a V, so it comes down into a point. You could get super fucking fancy with it, an upside down V so that there were 2 tails. Whatever you want, it's completely up to you. But when I asked Jen, she wanted a point. We need to find the center of our fabric. So that's where our point is gonna be, and then we'll V up from there. So I'm gonna fold my fabric in half, making sure that my seam is on my crease, and that is gonna give us our center. I'm gonna put a pin where I am estimating my center to be, which is right here. And then we'll measure just to make extra double sure. What is that, 6 3/4? Oh yeah, I'm pretty balls on center, so yay. We know that our hang down, where it meets the edge of the table and drops, is 12 inches. I do not want my V to start right at the hang down. I want to have a little, like few inches of hang down before my V starts. And this is just all personal preference. If you want your V to start right where it hits the edge of your table, you start it there. I'm gonna say I'm gonna take it down 3 inches. From bottom up, 9 inches is where I want my V to start. So I'm gonna put a little pin, and these are just our little placeholders. So this is going to be the shape of my V. Notice we're only doing one side right now. We're just gonna fold the fabric over and mimic this line on the other side. So now that I have that line, I'm gonna cut just on the outside about a 1/4 inch. Perfect. Now we just need to mimic this exact shape right there. Easy. Make sure we're lined up. We're at our center. Everything's lined up. Follow that. And no matter what shape you make, do 1/2 first, fold it over so that you are perfectly symmetrical. Okay, so yay. We have one side done. Now we need to transfer this to the other end. And remember when I said you want to measure your table and then add 12 inches to either side. For Jen's table without the leaf, 72 plus 12 plus another 12 for the other side, 96. So I want to measure 96 out because that's where our other point is going to be, right here. Should be 96. I'm actually going to put a pin in this and go lay it on the table just to double make sure that I'm right before I cut and all that jazz. Okay, so for me, the measurement was pretty perfect. However, when I put Jen's end chairs at the table runner was like touching, almost like resting on the seat of each chair, which I didn't like. So I just minused off like an inch-ish so that when the table runner was on, the point of the table runner wasn't laying on the seat of the chair. It was just hovering just so slightly above the seat of the chair. So I moved my pin up a little bit of an inch, so that's a good way to just double check. If you have chairs that don't have a very puffy seat to them, adding 12 and 12 to either side, that would be money. But depending on how like puffy the seat of your chair is, you may want to adjust that measurement just a hair so that your table runner isn't like laying on the seat of your chair and it just hovers above. So now I want to fold my fabric directly in half lengthwise and meet my point with my point pin here. And now we literally can just cut this same shape out right here. And we will have two very matchy, very perfect ends to our table runner. So let's cut it. And voila, look it, matchy matchy. Now we get back to the sewing machine and sew these ends up, but not all the way because we have to be able to flip this fabric right side out. Okay, so for end number 1, I'm literally gonna sew all the way. Close this puppy up. And then there's, I don't know if I've ever taught you this trick before, but there is a trick when you get to where you want your point to be. Put this down. We're just doing about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Sew forward, back to lock it in. And then I'm gonna sew all the way to where my point is. Now, when I'm at my point, I'm gonna do a little forward back situation, but then I wanna leave my needle in the point of my fabric. I'm gonna lift my pressure foot, and then I'm gonna pivot my fabric. Pivot! So now I can start sewing up this edge of the fabric. By doing that, leaving your needle in the fabric and just pivoting the fabric, you can begin sewing that straight line again, and it will be perfectly crisp. And give it a little forward back action. Voila, perfect. Now we are going to sew up the other end, but we're going to leave about a 2 or 3 inch gap in our stitching so that we can flip this fabric right side out. So now this is my other side of the fabric. I'm gonna sew this entire side, get to the point, turn my fabric, sew up, leave a gap here, and then sew here. So this is gonna be my opening for me to be able to get my hand in there and turn this fabric out. Lock in the stitch, go. Get to our point, leave the needle in, lift our pressure foot, turn our fabric, pressure foot down, sew for just a little bit, like there seems good. I'm gonna forward back that action, take it out, cut this off, re-put my fabric in a good 3 inches away, forward back this action, and then continue sewing to the end. Voila, donezo. Now that we have our sewing pretty much done, what we want to do before we flip anything out is I want to trim my seam allowance so it's a little less bulky. So I'm just going to trim this close, but not right up to my stitch line. And then before we flip it, we are going to press these seams open. And why do we do that? Because it just makes a crisper look in the end. I'm going to trim even the long stitch side to get the salvage edge off, and then we'll come back and we'll press our seams out. So now that our seam allowance is trimmed pretty close to where our stitch is, we want to press these seams out before flipping our fabric right side out. So iron on, be careful because your little fingers are going to be in here. You want to press the seam out as close to, you're literally pressing it right out to where your stitch is. But again, you got to use, ow, the steam's on. Okay, how do you turn the steam off of this damn thing? 0 steam. No, thank you. No one wants burnt finger. We're just pressing those seams out. I'm going to do that all along all of my stitched edges, and then we can flip the fabric. Seams are pressed out and we are ready to flip this puppy inside out. We just need to find our little hole that we made, and because of the length of this fabric, it's gonna get pretty hairy when trying to flip it right side out. Hopefully leave a big enough hole for your hand, and then I'm gonna run my hand all the way to the other end, grab that point, and then pull it through, and then just start shimmying all my fabric out of this little tiny hole that I made. This is where it could get hairy, especially if your fabric is a little bulky. You just want to be gentle, just getting that fabric inside out without like ripping your seams apart. It'll start to come, don't worry, pulling gently from all angles. Almost there, almost there. Boom! We did it. Then you just want to take your finger and we want to reach in there and sharpen up the points. Really push out that point so it's super, super sharp. You want to do it on this end as well as on that other end over there. Push all our little corners out. Oh yeah, great. Look at that. Voila. For the most part, table runner done. So you might be saying, well, that's great, Sheri, but you have a hole in your table runner. I know, we're gonna sew that up, don't worry. You can hand sew it shut so your stitch doesn't show, or you could do what I'm gonna do and take it to the sewing machine right along the edge. I'm just gonna sew that shut. Before I stitch it closed, I am gonna press this out because it's bubbling, like, the seam is going into the fabric more than I want it to, so that I have a really crisp line to sew on. That's what I'm gonna do. So, really, I've ironed it so crispy, folded my edges in. Now I just need to run my sewing machine right along here. Again, if you did not want this seam to show, you would go ahead and hand sew this seam shut. But because it's just gonna be this little tiny baby bit right here, I'm just gonna run my sewing machine right along that to close that up. No one's gonna be the wiser. So get it right on the very, 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 very edge. Top and my bottom fabrics are lined up. And we're done. Voila! No one will be the wiser. Like, to the naked eye, you can't even tell that I stitched it on the outside. I mean, look. Seriously. And yeah, that's it. We literally made a table runner. The only thing now we have to do is iron everything, all of our seams, press those totally out and flat so everything is laying super flat and looks super profesh, and then you can put it on your table. So I'm gonna iron this one, but don't forget, this was the sewing version of your table runner. If you don't have a sewing machine, I got you, boo. Don't even worry. We're gonna do that one next. Okay, so you don't have a sewing machine, but you want a super darling custom table runner? Don't worry, you can have it. All you need to do is go get fusible bonding web. I call it hem tape. This package is called Stitch Witchery Fusible Hem Tape. That's it. It's basically like sticky iron-on shit. Everything that we just did with the sewing machine, we're literally going to do with our iron. Easy, easy. Same rules apply. Take your fabric, fold it in half, iron your good seam. Then once you have that done, we're gonna fold it right sides together, edge to edge, and we're literally going to take our hem tape, lay it in here, put this down, iron it all the way down. Done. Then we're also going to do that with our ends, leaving a gap just like we did with the sewing machine so that we can reach in and pull our fabric right side out. I mean, it's as easy as that. Now, let's say you're like, I don't own a sewing machine and I don't own an iron. Don't worry. All you need to do is get a fabric that can fray. So by that, I mean, when you pull a little thread, it makes a frayed edge. So you would just take one width of fabric. You're not gonna double it. Basically, by doubling it, you're having your print on side one and side two. Benefit in this is you get a stain on side one, you just flip it over to side two, you're good to go. But if you don't have an iron and you do not have a sewing machine, you are just gonna cut one width. So where I folded it and ironed it, I would cut a super straight line. So you're gonna have a long rectangle of one piece of fabric. Then you're just gonna sit down on your couch and you're gonna start fraying the edges out. And you could do as big of a fray or as skinny of a fray as you want. Once you have it all frayed, you lay it down on your table and it's done. Couldn't get much easier. That's an option, but because we do have an iron, we're going to make our table runner double-sided, just like we did with the sewing machine. Now, there are directions on this hem tape. I don't follow them. I just iron it however I want to iron it, really. I'm literally just going to take this hem tape, place it on the edge of my fabric, close up my fabric, and iron it together. It's not difficult at all. Now, I do little sections at a time. So I would not run my hem tape all the way along. I just rip my hem tape off right there and then iron that part and then shove some more hem tape in, iron, shove some in, iron, shove some in, iron until I'm done. So once you have your long seam all ironed shut, fused together, you can now work on your ends. For this one, I'm just going to leave the end super square, no fanciness, no frills. But if you wanted to do the point, you would do it exactly how we did the one that we just sewed. Cut out your point, put your fusible webbing in the little V and iron it. But because I just want to do something different and because I just like straight, clean, sharp, square, my aesthetic, I'm gonna go ahead and do that for this end here. Rip off the right amount, shove it into my inside, get it right along the edge. Now, for this particular iron, you're gonna wanna play around with your iron settings. That's why I don't necessarily follow the directions. It wasn't getting as hot as I wanted it to. So I found that using it with steam really made that bond super strong. So I have it on super high and super steamy, and that seems to be working for this iron and this fabric and this fusible webbing. So just test a little bit. I mean, and you'll know because you'll start to iron it and then you'll go, hey, this isn't even sticking together. Turn up the iron, turn down the iron. The last thing you want to do is like have your iron set so high that you burn your fabric. So we don't want that. So play around with it and then just iron everything closed. Oh, I was thinking as I was sitting here ironing, you said if you don't have an iron, you can't have a double-sided table runner. And you most certainly can, because there's this little thing called fabric glue. You could literally just fabric glue all of these edges closed and you'd be done. So there's so many options and it will spruce up your table. You're gonna die. And then also, think of the holiday possibilities. You could get holiday printed fabric and make a table runner for every single holiday. This is not a difficult task. It is not taking us very long at all. If you were like super fly into it, Easter fabric, Christmas fabric, Thanksgiving fabric, birthday fabric, depending on your fabric, you find fabric for $1 a yard, $3. You have a table runner. Literally, you could be throwing a dinner party and be like, my table looks great. If only I had a table runner. 3 hours before your dinner party, run to the fabric store, pick a fabric in the right length, come home, sew it, iron it, glue it, or just cut it and fray it. Boom, place it on your table. Guests arrive and, oh, my table. Yeah, I just said it really quickly for you guys. Yeah, so many possibilities with the table runner. So that's one side, donezo, and now we just do basically the same thing to the other side, except for, like I said, I'm gonna leave a gap, iron it, done. Okay, once you have everything ironed and everything's tight and fused together, you wanna just trim just the corner off a little bit, because when you flip it right side out, you don't want this extra bulk in your corners. You do want your fabric to cool down just so that you ensure that you're stuck good. Then, just like we did with the sewing version, we're gonna reach in, and you wanna be just a little bit gentle here at your opening, because you don't wanna rip that hem tape out of there. But if you do rip it out, it's okay. You can just iron another piece back, which is what we're gonna do to close up this hole anyways. Grab the end and pull it out, just like the other one. And again, it's pretty much done. Done-zo. Again, I want to get my finger in there and really poke those corners through. And then once we have everything ironed completely flat and good, done. Money. So now, where we have our opening, just like we did when we sewed it, we're gonna make sure we fold in along the hemline, hem tape, right in there. Once we have this closed, we're just gonna go along, press all of our seams out, voila. You have a no-sew table runner. You wanna see it in real life on a dining room table? Because you're going to right now. Are you ready for the amazing custom table runner? It looks pretty good, not gonna lie. Get ready, because here it comes. Dun, 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 dun. Look at it. Beautiful, beautiful point along the whole length of the table. Beautiful, beautiful point on this side. And look, cute coordinating with the chairs. Cute coordinating with the chairs over there. Completely custom, completely amazing. And in no time at all, with just a few yards of fabric, you too could have a custom table runner. But wait, there's more. Dun, 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 dun. Here is our no-sew version. Looks completely legit if you ask me. Now, of course, this one is a little bit longer because it's made for when Jen adds the leaf to her dining room table. So right now, the drop length is a little long, but when the leaf is in, it will be perfectamundo. No sew, and no one would ever know. Okay, so yay, that is it. If you are looking to spruce up your dining room table in a quick and easy way, add some fabric, make a table runner. And again, you could change out the fabric with holidays, seasonally. It's pretty cost effective and doesn't take a lot of time to add some color and flair. And that's another good thing, a table runner. For those of us who might be a little anxious when it comes to bright colors, but we do want to incorporate maybe a bright, fun pattern without like super committing to it, a table runner is definitely the way to go. You can love it for a second, but you don't have to live with it for the rest of your life. And if you only spent like 10 bucks on the fabric, you're only out 10 bucks when you decide you hate it. It's a win-win. As far as I'm concerned, make a table runner. It's easy. Sewing machine or not, you can do this one. So yeah, if you like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Be sure to ring that notification bell so that you are alerted to all of the DIY Wednesday videos I push out, which is every other Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. Make sure you share this video with your family and friends. And as always, thanks for hanging out.